residents found themselves stranded in their homes waiting for rescue teams to arrive. The heat of Italy, Rome and entire city forced in all shared challenges at the Colosseum, an enduring symbol of Rome history, stood the silent within the raging storm as a rain and wind threatening to erode an incident forcade. Trees turned into rivers and historic positions became waterlogged that caused extensive damage of city infrastructure. Italian authorities renovated their effective response to time of crisis point of action. Emergency service working tirelessly to rescue those trapped in the rising floodwaters and restore essential service helicopters. However, over submerged areas, airlifting residents to safety, the firefighters braved elements to reach those in need. Italy is grappling with a severe flooding after days of relentless rain, particularly affected with the northern regions of the country. Torrential downpour have caused rivers to swell, burst their banks and inundate towns and villages. This latest episode of flooding has left authorities struggling to cope with the growing crisis, with thousands of people evacuated from their homes. The region of Emilia-Romagna, Lombardy and Veneto have been among the hardest hit. In Emilia-Romagna, widespread damage to infrastructure have been reported, with the roads submerged, bridges washed away and homes flooded. Several rivers, including the Po, the Angel, have reached critical levels, forced emergency service to respond rapidly to prevent further damage. The situation has been compounded by landslides in hilly areas, blocked roads and isolated communities. In Venice, the city is too familiar to high water levels. Flood definitions were put the test. The iconic most barriers designed to protect the city with the rising tides were activated shelters to manage the Venice from the significant damage. However, other areas in the region were not so fortunate. Many towns and villages in Veneto region saw extensive flooding, with the residents forced to flee the higher ground. The human toll of storm is still being aced. At least 3 deaths have been confirmed so far, including the elderly man who drowned in flooding basement in Messina and young delivery driver who was swept away by floodwaters in Catania. Dozens of people have been injured, many of them due to fallen debris and traffic incidents on the road, Middleside, Pullery or rain. Sicilian Governor Renata Citrelli visited the flooded areas on Tuesday, calling the damaged helicopters and promised long-term support. "We will not abandon our people. The recovery will be swift and complete," we promised during the press conference. Local volunteers arrived the affected areas, diverted flood and helping to clear debris. Social media is now filled not only image and destructive but also of solidarity. Neighbors stretch offering shoulders and young groups organized donated drivers. Schools in several provinces remain closed to damage assessment continue. Psychologists have been sent to provide assistance to children and families affected by trauma, especially in the hardest hit community of Gela and Lixita. Parts of the southern Italy are trying to recover from the torrential rain that caused devastating flood in Sicily. Flooding cities, blocked roads and leaving thousands of people without electricity. Officials have called the disaster a national emergency. Within hours, the streets of Palermo, Catania and Messina turned into raging rivers that swept away cars and flooded the first floor to homes and businesses. The Italian Civil Protection Agency reported that more than 115 millimeters of rain fell in less than 20 hours, an amount that usually falls over several months. Local resident Maria Russo told reporters, "The water came so fast that in a matter of minutes my streets turned into river. We didn't have time to have anything." Emergency service rescue families standing on rooftops and firefighters working throughout the night clearing debris and pumping water out of hospitals and schools. At least 20,000 households were left without power and many villages remain isolated after landslides blocked acid roads. Authorities confirmed several injuries, at least 3 deaths, although death toll could rise in such countries.
Siamo al primo piano perché sotto è tutto allagato, non ci possiamo muovere, è tutto allagato.
Public transportation was paralyzed, with parts of the subway lines A and B suspended, bases rerouted, and the flights in Campina airport delayed after runways were covered in hail. More than 13,000 residents were left without power, living entire neighborhoods in the dark. The economic impact is already severe. Outdoor territories across Rome historic center were destroyed, and initial estimates suggest the damage could expect 15 million. Farmers in Lazio described the storm and destination. An entire vineyard and olive groves are destroyed in a matter of minutes. Experts blame a collision between humid Mediterranean air and an intense cold front. Meteorologist Elena Rossi noted Rome is experiencing storm weather previously unthinkable. Climate change is increasing both their frequency and intensity. Resident and shaken by their silence, cafe owner Marco De Santis weapon broken glass had the balcony said. The city was survived the Melina, but every year nature is harder. It is a weekend we cannot ignore.
Risponde le segreterie telefonica di 3, 4.
Rome, Italy. A powerful and sudden hailstorm brought the Italian capital to the standstill, transforming the historic streets into frozen torrential and leaving residents in shock. Within minutes, dark clouds gathered over the eternal city, unleashed the violent downpour of ice that covered cars, monuments, and pigeons under the thick layer of white. Meteorologists described the event of extreme collective cell, an unusual atmospheric clash between warm Mediterranean humidity and a cold Arctic front. Hailstones, some exceeded 3 centimeters in diameter, pounded rooftops and vehicles. Standing off alarm across the city, wind gusts reached nearly 100 km/h, intensified the destruction, uprooted trees and scattered debris along the Tiber River. Emergency service received over 120 calls. In 2 hours, dozens of vehicles were abandoned the submerged streets, and firefighters working tirelessly to free people trapped in the underpass. Several metro lines and bus roads were suspended due to flooding and power outage. It looked like a scene from the disaster movie, said resident Jill Lombardi. In a few minutes day turned into night, and the streets became a river in the ice. A violent hailstorm has battered parts of Sicily, transformed sun-shocked towns into city landscape, and caused widespread disruption across the island. The powerful storm struck suddenly on a Tuesday afternoon, hitting Palermo, Catania, and several inland communities with torrents of rain and a hailstorm as large as a walnut. Within a minute, roads turned white, cars were dented with flash floods swept through the narrow streets. It looked like a storm in August, said Maria Russa, a shop owner in Catalonia. The hail came down so fast and hard it broke out out window and filtered the shop floor with water. Emergency crews were distributed across Sicily as a local authority received hundreds of distress calls. Firefighters worked late into the night to rescue drivers trapped in the submerged vehicles and clearing hail-pocket roads. In Palermo, parts of the Sicily Historic Center were blanketed in ice to 15 centimeters deep, forcing police to close several main roads and tunnels. Meteorologists say the storm was triggered by intense grayish air masses, warm humid to rise from the Mediterranean, colding with a cold front descended from the northern Europe.
Questo è un grosso problema, molto grosso. Porta via il negozio qua.
The storms can suddenly catch residents and travelers off guard, with winding streets were transformed into rivers. At least 2 people were injured by falling debris and dozens were rescued from the flooding cars, and the Via Appia responded more than 500 emergency calls. "I've never seen anything like it," said Luca Perry, a taxi driver whose car was caught in the floodwaters near Tiber River. "I felt like the sky was falling." The storm hit central areas hardest, including Trasteville, Tuscany, and San Giovanni, where entire intersection were flooded by flash floods, lighting lit up the sky over the Colosseum and St. Peter Basilica, creating unforgettable images that quickly spread on social media. "Rome looked at something out of the Bible," one eyewitness wrote online. "Thunder rumbled between the ancient monuments." Meteorologists from Italy's Severe Protection Department confirmed more than 19 millimeters of rainfall in less than 19 minutes. Authorities report that the wind uprooted trees, damaged roofs, and caused partial power outage in some areas and Veneto region. The city transport network was paralyzed, but buses were suspended and several bridges were temporarily closed due to high water levels. Meteorologists said the storm was fueled the powerful low-pressure system that swept across southern Europe during the most unstable air from the Mediterranean Sea. As a result, more than 120 millimeters of rainfall in few hours, half of Venice's normal monthly rainfall. Environmental groups have again warned that climate change is exacerbating extreme weather events across Italy. Venice is not far from the climate crisis, say meteorologist Luca Moretti. Without district action, this flooding will only get worse. As the storm subsides, the clean begin that the forces and not yet devastation flood severe as a painful reminder of Venice's fragile struggle with the sea. On Tuesday afternoon, Rome experienced a shocking weather change. Heavy hail fell on the city, leaving an instant cover in ice and chaos. The warm and humid day quickly turned into sin and destruction as dark cloud gathered over the capital. Without warning, released hailstones the size of walnuts will pelted cars, roofs, and pristines. Within the minutes, the city's cobbled streets turned into ice rivers, and ambulances series broke through the narrow valley and Trasteville and Tuscany. Locals took refuge in cafes, shops, and metro station while the storm storm raged for nearly an hour. "It was terrible," said Gianni Moretti, a taxi driver who was cut off in the storm. "The hail was so heavy and I could see road. I thought the white ship would break." The hail caused significant damage to it. White ship damaged cars and flooded in low-lying area. In some parts of Via Appia Antica, parked cars were flooded up to their doors, and a section of Rome metro lines A and B were temporarily closed due to water ingress. Firefighters received more than 500 emergency calls, including the rescue of people from the stuck cars and flooded basements.